What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Hangover. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Shannon White as always. Shannon, how are you doing on this long Memorial Day weekend?
Well, I'm just very blessed and thankful to be an American and living in the United States of America, the greatest country in the world, and just so thankful for all the servicemen and women that have served and who have gave all for our country and our freedom. And so we've Memorial Day weekend, like it's the start of summer, and it's also a time of remembrance. So it's something we're kind of going to do a little bit on tonight's show.
Yes, we definitely are. And again, this weekend is for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice and for those whose family members have made the ultimate
Yep.
sacrifice in protecting and defending our country. And for those, we salute you guys. It is it's me. I was in the military, so I had some friends who went over and didn't come back, and so it can be a tough day sometimes. But we're going to talk a little bit about football. OTAs are starting tomorrow. A lot of people are
Mhm.
expected to be there, some people not. The biggest question mark of all is TJ Watt going to be there? Do you think TJ Watt makes an appearance at OTAs?
Um, Knowing the man, even with they haven't done an extension yet, or I don't even know if there's been much discussion. I haven't heard, but I think he'll be there.
I don't think so. I think this is voluntary. So
Yes.
it's voluntary. So because of that, I don't think he's going to end up being there. I think he will be there for mandatory mini camp in a couple of weeks. So, but for OTAs, I don't think he's going to be there. In reality, that was a little bit of a side joke, but a little bit true. Is TJ going to be there? But more so, the biggest question mark is Aaron Rodgers going to be there? A lot of people were coming up with a bunch of clips I saw over the weekend where Rodgers was answering some Q&A questions, kind of alluding that he's going to be
Hmm.
signing with the Steelers. Hasn't happened yet, though. Hasn't happened. OTAs are tomorrow. Um, unless something happens in the morning, do you expect Aaron Rodgers to be there?
I can't. I don't even have any clue what's going on with all that. It's just gotten to be such a media circus, and they're taking what he said to a little girl at in the audience and making that like it's a Easter egg. He's in his comment that he's coming to Pittsburgh. It's ridiculous. I could care less, to be honest.
Hmm. So let's try to look in. This is going to be kind of hard. We're going to have to pretend we're in the future and look in hindsight. This upcoming Sunday is week 1. Aaron Rodgers is the starting quarterback. Does him being at OTAs make a difference?
Not at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, I don't think so
Like I
either.
said, I don't even think that mandatory minicamp. I think if he's there at the beginning of training camp, that's and he shows up in decent shape. I don't think they'll have him pushing any blocking sleds or anything. But a guy that's 41 years old, you don't want to put much more tread on those tires.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you on that one. Now, also, let's try to look in hindsight. Would you have preferred, let's just say Aaron Rodgers signs, and when he signs, he becomes fully committed. And let's just say that he's waiting for training camp, as you mentioned. Signs, he's there for the first day of training camp at Latrobe, fully committed. Would you have preferred that? Or would you have preferred he signed today and missed OTA's mini camp and then still showed up for the first day of training camp, but we would have known throughout this entire time? Which one do you think would have been better?
I'd like to have the commitment.
Me too.
One, because you can plan accordingly. Right now, it's all projection.
Hmm. That's true. I would like the commitment as well. So that you can plan accordingly. But I think a lot of people would let's just say he did sign and he had no intentions on being at a voluntary OTAs last season. Now I think it was training camp he missed a little bit of, but he ended up going to Egypt or something like that, and a lot of people were making a lot of noise about it. And so I was thinking maybe perhaps the reason behind the why he hasn't signed early is because he doesn't want to give people the idea that he is not committed to the team. by missing some of these things, and he wants to be 100% committed when he signs and he's able to show up. So just some food for thought there for those. Now there's some players that are going to be returning. I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see this offensive line, and I'm excited to hear. I know they're not going to be in pads or anything like that, but just want to see their movement and hear how they move. You have Faltano, who's going to be on the left side, on the right side. I'm sorry, Broderick Jones on the left side in his natural position. I'm excited for the offensive line and to hear about them. Who are you excited to hear about? What positions are you excited to hear about for OTAs?
Well, specifically, I'm excited to hear about Mason McCormick and see if he has improved, not his speed, but his fluidity, especially his lateral movement, to where he can be more effective at outside zone, because he is at a larger weight. He's bulked up some. I'm excited to see Roman Wilson. Is he look like he could contribute, crisper routes and, just more of an awareness and a grasp of the playbook, to where people's like, yeah, okay, he's going to contribute this year, whether he's wide receiver 2 or not, because I still think they need to get another guy. And then on defense, it's got to be the 2 big boys, the newcomers. I want to see Wyatt Black. I want to see Derek Harmon. Them guys is going to, the ability to be in that rotation and hopefully solidify starting spots will go a long way towards how the Steelers' run defense is this year.
Yeah, I'm excited for those guys as well. The quarterback position, if Mason's going to be the guy there for OTAs, does he give the Steelers enough of a look? I mean, there's only so much you can do, but enough of a look to say, hey, maybe we don't need Rodgers. Maybe we can do it with Mason. Like I said, there's only so much you can do without pads and things of that nature. But I'd be excited to hear, how he's connecting with DK and who's the wide receiver too. I think that's going to be a big question mark. Who's going to be lining on the outside? Is it going to be Roman Wilson? Is it going to be Calvin Austin? Is it going to be the new guy? Who's going to be out there? Who do you expect to be lined outside at wide receiver 2, at least to start OTAs?
Knowing how the Steelers are, I'm going to say it's either Calvin Austin or Robert Woods, because Woods has the experience and Austin has the experience in the Steelers system. And whereas Roman Wilson has neither. So, he'll have to earn it if he eventually gets there, which we hope he does. But I'm going to guess Robert Woods starting out.
Yeah. I'm hoping it's Calvin Austin. I don't want to lean too much on a veteran like Woods. Woods to me is your Jericho Cotchery of the team, your guy that you can depend on in a pinch. You put him out there where you have 4 wide receivers and you need to get somebody who's got dependable hands, who's going to catch the ball and get you the first down, while everybody else that would typically get the ball is double covered. I really hope that he starts to solidify that role. Even early on, as far as OTAs goes, I think I've seen at least a progression in Calvin Austin, to the point where maybe we can see what he has on the outside. I think it was Sauce Garner who said coming out of college that the hardest player that he had defended in college was Calvin Austin. And so, he was a speedy guy. Route running wasn't his forte, so to speak, coming out of college in his first year active. But last year, I thought he took a big step in that department. I thought he was open quite a bit. And I think maybe perhaps if he had a quarterback that was willing or able to throw it over the middle, he probably would have had a lot more passes going a long ways. But I digress. So are you expecting Roman Wilson to be the starting slot wide receiver then?
I don't see him starting in OTAs. I mean, I just don't think the Steelers are going to hand him anything. I think, it is. Tom makes them show something. Yeah. And then, within a camp. And so it'll be a process. I just want to hear, he look good, look stronger, quicker, the hands he's always had. I think that's never been an issue. So, I'll even go back to Mason Rudolph. The Steelers know what they have with Mason Rudolph. the great quarterbacks are great all the time. A lot of good quarterbacks can be great occasionally, and then they have the occasional really bad game. Mm-hmm. They're not consistently steady, so that's what keeps them from being great. And I think Mason's going to be on that line, that he will have some really, really good games, like the Bengals, or you know what I mean, that game, or and then he'll have some games like he had last year. The one really bad game, I think it was Jacksonville. So it just happens, you know, and so I'm hoping that we see during OTAs, you know, Rudolph start, obviously, you know, have a chance to work a rust off and get some, you know, but I like to see him really lean into Will Howard. Not because I'm wanting Will Howard starting, but I want Will Howard to be as prepared as possible to be that number 2 if Rodgers don't come in.
That's true. He's going to definitely need to get a few snaps underneath his belt for anybody to be comfortable for him to be QB number 2.
Yep.
But, you know, Mason Rudolph is a guy who I see as a coach's player. He's going to do whatever the coach wants him to do. Yep. He's not the type of guy that I see is like, my helmet's not working, let me call my own play. You know, we've seen some quarterbacks do that. That's not Mason Rudolph. There's been a report here recently that Aaron Rodgers may want to call his own plays.
I think that, yeah.
If you have a guy like Mason who's going to do what the coach says, and you got a guy that wants to call your own plays, and it sounds like that may have been something that caused a friction between Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson last year. I can see that being an issue this year as well. I mean, when Russell Wilson called his own plays, the Steelers beat the Bengals by quite a bit. That was the last game they looked well offensively, you know, so that tells me that even if it's working, apparently there's still problems. So how do you think that's going to work, or that relationship's going to work?
Oh, I have a feeling Arthur Smith, he's just fine if Rodgers doesn't sign with Pittsburgh. Yeah. Because I think he knows that's coming. It's inevitable. And then we said last year, Rodgers got a guy who was coach of the year 2 years ago fired.
Yeah.
Or 3 years ago, got him fired. So, I mean, you think that he can't run Arthur Smith off? Because, you know, I think if the Steelers bring him in, this is a last-ditch opportunity to get lucky with a quarterback that can lead you to what they think is going to be their next Lombardi trophy. Mm-hmm. And I think that they will do whatever. They'll be willing to do whatever to keep that dream alive this season. I don't think it's realistic, but if they bring Rodgers in, they do.
Yeah. I can see this being some headaches in the front office and behind closed doors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And maybe even out in the public. Rodgers isn't a person that doesn't hide his feelings. I mean, right before Saleh got fired, you know, there was on the field a play that occurred, and Saleh went to go hug him, and Rodgers pushed him off and gave him the death stare that ended up costing him his job the following day or so.
Yeah.
And so, there could be some trouble in paradise brewing if they can't get on the same page. Now, transitioning onto the defensive side and what we want to see out of OTAs, if they were to put first team offense versus first team defense, you have DK Metcalf, wide receiver 1 on the outside. Who's covering him?
Oh, they'll put Porter on him.
You think it's Porter?
Yeah. Well, I know that Metcalf and Slay have a history anyway.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true.
Hopefully being on the same team, wearing the same colors, they can get past that. But I think they'd put Porter on him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Slay was also the guy that got in some fisticuffs with the Steelers players last year. Also, he's the one that was throwing the punches at Darnell Washington at the end of at the end zone there.
Yeah, but Darnell looked at him like he was a grade school kid throwing punches at him. He wasn't worried about him at all. Then he come over. It was Calvin Austin, if I remember right. And then Slay really puffed up on Austin because Austin's a mighty mite. But he wasn't all that enthusiastic about going after Washington.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Now, let's just say the offense is running 3 wide receivers and the defense is a nickel. Who's the nickel cornerback coming out first team OTAs?
Well, I don't think you signed Slay to put him in the bench. So I'm going to say Porter and Slay at corner to start.
Well, no, who's the third? Who's the slot corner?
Oh, who's the slot? I would go with Beanie.
You think Beanie's starting over Eccles?
Yeah, where he has more experience and Eccles is new.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And what about next to Patrick Queen? Who's going to be the next middle linebacker next to Patrick Queen? Is that going to be Peyton Wilson? Or do you think Cole Holcomb maybe does something there to unseat him?
I don't think they want to rush Holcomb too much. I think he should be ready. But again, it's probably going to take him, hopefully, he stays healthy this year. In my middle of the year, he might be a little bit more back to 100%. But I think he definitely Peyton Wilson's job.
Do you see that being more of a two-man team there? Last year, there was a lot of, Elandon Roberts being mixed in. There was a three-guy rotation with Peyton Wilson getting more experience, whether he's the green dot or not. And let's just say they keep the green dot on Patrick Queen. Do you see maybe perhaps with letting Roberts go that maybe they're going to, increase the load for Peyton Wilson and keep it a two-man team versus this rotation? Obviously, you're gonna want depth and things like that, and for special teams, that's why you have so many middle linebackers. But for the most part, on the defensive side, would you say that they're gonna maybe transition more to a two-guy team, or do you think they're still gonna have that rotation going around?
I don't know. I just think the modern game, you have a rotation on the inside. There is not too many guys that play 80 to 90% of the snaps anymore. They want to keep it around 70. And I think that Peyton Wilson and Queen are the starters. And then I think Holcomb is an excellent backup for Wilson. And then I think Harrison will back up Queen and be out there sometimes as an edge guy to spell whether it's Highsmith or TJ Watt, especially in coverage, because he's very good in coverage. And I think you'll see still the four-man rotation. And, and we might even have another guy, depending if Bruner makes it, but I think it may be practice squad.
With Harrison and his ability to blitz or to rush the quarterback, a lot of pressure teams have been doing something with TJ Watt. They've been chipping him a lot and maybe perhaps applying pressure up the middle and using a guy like Harrison or even Patrick Queen, who did a great job of blitzing up the middle, who could alleviate some of those chipping or chippiness on TJ Watt. Do you think maybe perhaps that might be something they're doing with a Harrison with that signing?
Well, the Steelers have some incredibly athletic inside backers who are very adept at blitzing. And when you think Harrison and you think Wilson can both play on the outside too, they can come off the edge or they can blitz up the middle. We know Queen is very adept at blitzing. All these guys can cover too, though, which was Roberts' main weakness. He did a good job. He got better. If you see Roberts when he come in the league, he was really bad at coverage. I'm talking Mark Robertson bad.
Yeah.
Because that's who he always reminded me of. Robertson, they play very similar. But by the last year, if you remember, Roberts made some big pass defenses and deflections. So, but I think the Steelers are better prepared this year at inside linebacker than they were last year.
I do too. I think defensively, given the guys that they've gotten up front, especially because of the guys that they've gotten up front, I think Peyton Wilson is gonna take a huge step forward. I saw him on Beanie Bishop's podcast, and the guy looks thicker. He looks bigger. He looks like he took in on the offseason program for weightlifting that most players do there, and he's swollen up. He looks jacked. And I think that I think Joey Porter Jr. I think he had a regression a little bit last season. He's gonna have to prove himself this year. He's going into his third year, and this is a big year for him if he wants to end up extending a contract later on in the future. If he wants to get that conversation started early, he wants to get that conversation started early in this upcoming off season. He needs to have, or after this season, he needs to have a huge season this upcoming year. Well, let's take a break real quick, and then when we get back, we're going to talk about Warriors and Warriors for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few words. And we're back. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get back into the conversation, I want to remind you guys of our website, stillcurtnetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. While you're there, go check out our audio-only podcast where you'll find mine, State of the Steelers, airs out every Saturday at about 11 a.m. Eastern time, Pittsburgh time. So go check that out. So, Shannon, Warriors Wanted. This was your idea. Explain to everybody what you were talking about when you came up with the title of the show. You're muted, by the way.
Excuse me. I'd be fine if I was on Pump Your Brakes already. We was talking and I said, in honor of Memorial Day, I thought it would be a fun exercise to, just kind of list off our all-time favorite Warriors by position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, again, this is like if you grew up in your era, where you're younger, you're going to have maybe some different picks than I do. Mm-hmm. And people my age have, and then some people younger won't have any idea who we're talking about, so they'll have somebody else. But it's fun to see because to me, when you say Warrior, you talk about players you love to root for and you admired because they played the game the right way, they played the game the Steeler way, and they played the game with toughness and intensity, 110 every play. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about a Warrior. I ain't talking about a guy's worried about his brand or me first. I'm talking about team first and taking legacy into account. So I just thought it would be fun exercise.
Yeah, let's do it. And when it comes to a couple of positions where there's two players, like for instance, wide receiver, you can choose two, or cornerbacks, you can choose two. You can choose one. I'll choose one. Yeah. But let's start off on the defensive side. We'll start off with safeties. Who's your Warrior?
Well, on the safety side, because I thought we'd start on offense. So now you flipped it on me. But no, it's this is part of it. It's going to be fun to figure out. The Steelers have had so many great safeties. But when we talk about a Warrior, I love Troy Polamalu. Troy is the guy, but I figure you're going to take Troy. Mm-hmm. And I loved everything about Troy. So I'm going to take a guy more from my early era, and I'm going to take Donnie Shell. Because Donnie Shell, undrafted, small school, South Carolina State, a guy that come in and he looked like a fire hydrant. I mean, the guy was built like a minion. I swear. But, no neck and all. And he hit like a torpedo. And, I never seen nobody hit Earl Campbell as hard as he hit Earl Campbell. I thought they was going to take him out in the ambulance. So I just think that when it comes to that delivery and punishment, you got Ryan Clark. There's other guys too, but I'm going to say Donnie Shell.
That's a good choice. I was prepared to go away from Troy if you didn't. I was thinking Ryan Clark. I was thinking Flowers from the early 90s. But yes, no, Troy Polamalu was my guy. I've had like 4 or 5 jerseys from Troy's. Yeah. I had a Rottweiler. Her name was Malu. Her full name Polamalu.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. She was amazingly trained. I miss her. But yes.
Have you ever met anybody who didn't like Troy Polamalu? Especially if they claim to be a Steeler fan.
Probably Joe Flacco.
No, I mean, they claim to be a Steeler fan. Well, I'm sure
Uh,
there's a lot of players that didn't like him too much, but he was hard. He was impossible not to like him because
exactly.
he'd knock you out and then say, "Are you okay, sir?" and help you up.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, he's a great person on the field, off the field. He was what you wanted out of a
Yeah,
football player,
yes,
and
100%, 100%.
never was an issue. And his Hall of Fame speech was top notch. And you know, you could tell that he played every play that way.
Right
To
here,
be a Steeler. Yeah, exactly.
it
And
was
so I
all
think
heart, baby, all heart. Yes.
exactly. So for 100%, Troy Polamalu, Warrior for the defensive backs. Now going to cornerbacks, who you're thinking there?
Oh man. Again, another position where there's so many greats. Um, I think the two greatest corners ever played the game is Mel Blount and Rod Woodson. I'm just gonna tell you that right now.
Yeah.
So again, I'm gonna show my age, but Mel Blount was a nightmare. He was a physical freak. The height and the speed and the power, and the way he played the game. To me, it's Mel Blount.
You know, I love what Rod Woodson did. I was very young when Rod Woodson was a player for the Steelers. And I watched him. I had a Woodson jersey, but I'm going to go with Ike Taylor because I saw Woodson in a Ravens jersey too, and that rubbed me the wrong way. um,
I
but
blame that on Steelers ownership and management.
that's true too. They had every opportunity to keep him, and they
Yes.
didn't. They dropped the ball. So 100%. But I'm gonna go with Ike Taylor. Ike Taylor to me was just he was just the dog. He was if he could catch, that guy would probably be in the Hall of Fame, man.
No
If he
doubt,
could
no doubt.
catch. But
He dropped at least 30 or 40.
exactly. But the guy was and he also was not just locking wide receivers, but you got to think of the receivers of the time as well. I mean, he was in the same division with Chad Ochocinco and Husmanzada and everybody that they had there with the Bengals and whatnot. So he just did an excellent job. He had an interception in the Super Bowl. So he in Super Bowl against the Seahawks. So he did get one when it counted.
Yep.
But I'm gonna go with my man Ike. Number 24, man. The reason why Joy Porter wears 24. So
Yep.
I'm
Exactly.
gonna go with Ike. All right, let's transition to the middle linebacker position. This one's gonna be interesting too, because you can go a long ways there. Who
Oh
are you
man.
thinking for middle linebackers?
Well, I just feel bad at times because it's my era, but it's got to be Jack Lambert. I mean, the foundation of the Stiller dynasty, of the Still curtain of everything, is Joe Great, which we'll get to the line in a little bit. But when you talk about the guy who brought that, Joe Great needed help. He needed another guy on that team that wasn't going to back down from nobody. And, he's the one that was out there as a rookie fighting Dick Buckus, because Joe Green wasn't going to let the Steelers be laughingstocks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when he got Jack Lambert, it all changed because Jack Lambert was an enforcer. And to this day, nobody's ever played the game like Jack Lambert, in my opinion. And so, to me, he's on a list and a team of great warriors. He's right there at the top as the ultimate warrior.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you on that one. For me, I'm gonna go a little old school for me too. I'm gonna go with Levon Kirkland. Now, the reason why I'm going Levon Kirkland is because he was a massive man, and he was playing football when I was playing football as a peewee. I was going into peewee into middle school, and I was a very large kid growing up, and like for instance, I think I was in first grade. I was 5'2", and I was small. I was huge, and I was like, everybody they want to play me on the line, but I wanted to be the linebacker, and I was like, I can be like Jerome, I can be like Levon Kirkland. Those were my guys because they were big, they were strong, they were fast, they were probably in a position you wouldn't expect them to be. But Levon Kirkland's my guy at the middle linebacker position. I loved what he was able to do, hard hitting, massive human being, and the guy was nimble, quick on his feet. He could catch too. He had interceptions and impressive player. Now transitioning to go ahead.
I just got to say, I love your pick. I love Kirkland. Again, another position Steelers just been blessed with an overabundance of Warriors. But Kirkland literally was 290, before breakfast, and maybe 300 by game day. And the way he moved and the way he played and hit, he was the only guy that could match up with the Dallas Cowboys defensive line on the Steelers defense in that Super Bowl. The Steelers were getting pushed around, and he had a marvelous game. And it's a shame it was in a loss, because I think he would be remembered differently had they won, because he was arguably the defensive MVP that game. Because he really, he helped slow down Emmitt Smith in that line, who was crushing everybody. So I do say, again, I had to mention that he was just that great. He really was.
Yeah, he definitely was. That you were right about that Cowboys game in that Super Bowl. The defense played remarkable in that game. They really did. That offense that they were going up against was just demolishing a lot of teams that year. Yep. And the Steelers defense aren't the reason why the Steelers lost that game. That's for sure.
Oh,
all right, let's transition up front, but on the outside still. So we got the outside linebackers. I'll let you go first.
Well, I kind of knew my answer, so I wore the jersey.
There you go.
I grew up, I had the Void Lloyd shirts, T-shirts. I wasn't hired for my disposition shirts. I related to him more than any player since Jack Lambert retired. And I was a massive Lloyd fan. And I will always love some of my best memories being at Three River Stadium watching Lloyd, watching him warm up. And he would stand on the sidelines away from everybody. And he would throw the ball, play pitch and catch. He'd throw one ball with the right hand, catch it, then throw the next one with his left. And throw strikes. Just like, I don't know if it was part of his Taekwondo training and all that stuff, but you talk about ambidextrous, he could do it all. He could play from either side of the line. He could blitz, he could cover, but he brought that intensity. He brought that nasty element. Yes, he wasn't a nice guy. And I've heard people say, well, he was not a nice guy. I didn't want him to be a nice guy. I wanted him to win. And that's what he did. And he created so many for them. And he not had the major injury to start his career that slowed him down. And then the one at the end, that knee injury, he would be in the Hall of Fame, no doubt. Because there was about a 4 or 5 year stretch that he was all pro every year. He was that dominant. So, but we just don't have the guys who cared that much, hardly ever. You don't see that anymore with the free agency and guys moving all the time. They don't want to make enemies on the other team. Lloyd never talked to the other team. When the game's over, he just left the field. He didn't like nobody. And I don't know. I guess I respected that. He loved the Steelers. He loved being a Steeler. Now, you could argue there's more great edge guys in Pittsburgh history than any position. It's incredible how deep it goes. And you got Debo. Look at what attitude he brought. You got Watt. You got Kevin Green. You got, Chad Brown just boom, 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 But to me, there's only one, and that's Greg Lloyd.
Yeah, Greg Lloyd's definitely high up there on my list as well. He was one of my favorite players. When I played defense, I wanted to hit people like Greg Lloyd hit people.
Yes.
Yes. It was amazing. That was back in the day when hitting was allowed in the NFL. They used to do something called jacked up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For me, and this is where I'm going to go modern, probably in the next two position, this one and the next one. I'm going to go with TJ, man. He's a sack leader for the team. He had the year. He should be the sack leader for the single season. That year where he got 22 and a half, nobody laid down for him.
Yes.
Nobody laid down for him at the end for one of them. And two, he was injured for some of that game, for some of that season. Yeah, I think he had like a groin injury and something like that. So early on, he played a couple games and he missed a game or two. Then he came back and then he got hot again. And, he's done some things that no other outside linebacker has been able to do. The interceptions that he's had at the line of scrimmage, the domination that he's had over the years. Now, I know last year he was hurt towards the end of the season and fatigued. And I know a lot of people look at his postseason stats and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of context that goes into that, especially given the fact that the offensive side has not been able to hold their end of the bargain for several years now in a row, leading to exhaustion, fatigue, injury, not just with TJ, but amongst the entire defensive line and defense. So, but all in all, I got to throw TJ in there. He's my guy as the outside linebacker. But
And
James Harrison.
Oh yeah,
Go ahead.
and I got to mention Jack Ham
Yeah.
because he might be. You've heard of the cerebral assassin. Jack
Mhm.
Ham was always 2 steps ahead. He was Larry Bird on the football field,
Mhm.
and he was a really good athlete. He kind of like TJ, wasn't the greatest in the league at the time, but he was a really excellent athlete. But there was a guy who had no weakness. There was nothing Jack Ham could not do on a football field.
Yeah.
And when you talk about excellence, he represented excellence on the field, off the field, everywhere. And so it just the intensity and the disposition of Greg Lloyd is what makes me think the very definition of warrior.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Now here's an interesting one. Defensive lineman. Where are you going there?
Well, that's a no-brainer. Are we going to pick 4 or pick 3? You guys have to pick 3.
We could pick two each. Who are your 2?
Okay, who are my 2? Well, one, I guarantee you, no doubt, the greatest Pittsburgh Steeler of all time, and thank God he's still living, is Mean Joe Green. Mean Joe Green, they would not be the Pittsburgh Steeler organization without Mean Joe Green. Mm-hmm. They were a laughingstock. They were literally everybody played their B team, their second stringers when they played the Steelers because they didn't want to get hurt because nobody respected the Steelers. Drafting Mean Joe Green changed everything.
Yeah.
And so the guy played with I can't remember if it was if his shoulder was dislocated or arthritic or whatever, but it points there he couldn't raise it no higher than that late in his career, and he still was in the trenches battling. And, didn't ask for any sympathy. He just went out there and battled every game. And he cared more than I don't know if I've ever seen a Steeler player care more about the organization than he did. So for me, there's nobody else close. The second defensive lineman, that gets tougher because there's been a lot of great ones. I want to put some respect on L.C. Greenwood.
There you go.
Because, the fact he's not in the Hall of Fame is a travesty. The guy was he was a nightmare for any offensive lineman. They could not block him. And part of the reason that Green could be so effective is you had to watch double teaming because they had 4 outstanding linemen on that steel curtain, and you couldn't double team them. And you couldn't block Green on the outside one-on-one. So I know Hayward's been great. I love Arthur Smith. There's other guys. Brett Kiesel, being a late round guy and becoming a legend in Pittsburgh. I love Kiesel, but I probably have to go L.C. Greenwood.
You can't go wrong with those 2 guys. You can't go wrong there. For me, I'm going to go with Cam, as my first one. Given the just body of work that guy has done, including last year, just constantly the professional that he is off the field. He was the Walter Payton Man of the Year a couple of years back for his off the field work. What he's done on the field. I think he's a future Hall of Famer. If the Steelers can get a couple of playoff game wins, maybe who knows if they run the table this year, he definitely would be in consideration for Hall of Fame. The second guy, man, I love Aaron Smith. I love Brett Kiesel, the beard, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Big Snack, man. I'm gonna have to go Casey Hampton. He played a huge role into why the Pittsburgh Steelers have 2 Super Bowls in the late 2000s, and so he kept those linebackers clean. Farrier and Foote, he kept them clean because of what he was able to do. He took on double teams. Yep. I mean, great guy. I mean, a lot of people have often look back at saying, hey, we need to get a nose tackle like Casey Hampton because we haven't had somebody that can solidify the middle. And the defenses has changed. It's not even the same defense anymore, but people are so concerned about how the Steelers defense has been run through, especially over the last course of a few years. And a lot of people look back like maybe we need to get somebody like Casey Hampton back in there. For him to still be talked about so many years later tells you what kind of effect that he had on the defensive line, in my opinion.
That answer, I applaud that answer. To me, that was the most underrated answer we've had so far because I've totally overlooked and he skipped my mind. Mm-hmm. As soon as you said Hampton, I'm like, oh, yes. In my opinion, him and Vince Wilfork are the two best nose tackles in history. Mm. And look at the success they had in the NFL. But Hampton, that's an awesome pick. Awesome.
Yeah. Pick. Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with Big Snack, man.
No.
He's if you see him now, you probably won't be calling him Big Snack. Guy's lost a lot of weight.
He's so little.
He is.
He really has. It's great because I was worried about his health. Yeah. And then we seen him earlier this year. And I was like, man, he's really, a lot of them guys do that because they know they have to.
Yeah.
And thank God he did. But he looks great.
Yeah, no, for sure. All righty. So let's transition on to the offensive side. We'll start off where we ended on the offensive line. We'll start off with center. Who do you think, or who is your center warrior of all time?
That's why it's hard for me to put Lambert or Green at the top. If you had a Mount Rushmore of Warriors, you'd have four if you have a Mount Rushmore. Well, you're going to have R and Mike up there, guys. Mike Webster was toughness redefined. I mean, he was the definition. The guy played at 6'1", 275 pounds, built like a brick truck, strong as a bull, short, stubby arms, but massive. You did not go through him. You did not go over him. You did not go around him. Mike Webster, but what he had to do every play, because he was so short, is he would come forward with his helmet and he would hit him right in the chest. And he would gain leverage immediately. And once he locked on, it was over. The problem is that's where all the head trauma come from.
Yeah.
And I remember watching him on the sidelines, and he would come to the sidelines. Everybody else is celebrating, and he'd just walk over and flop down on the bench, take his helmet off, and he looked like he was disheveled. I mean, he looked like he had been in war. So we are talking about warriors here because he gave everything he had for that organization and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I have nothing but the highest respect for that man. And he is the ultimate warrior at center.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you there. For me to say somebody different, I'm gonna go with Dermontti Dawson. He was, and that's
dirt, baby. That's dirt.
He is amazing. I mean, Hall of Famer for a reason. Athletic, can pull, can move. He was ahead of his time when he came to the offensive line. Dermontti Dawson to me is an easy pick. I know Marquise Pouncey is a guy that a lot of people would maybe perhaps look there as a potential warrior as well. And I wouldn't be, against that choice either. I just think Dermontti Dawson was, he's up there. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame for a reason. What about the guard position? Where are you going with guard?
Yeah, I mean, again, so many great players. But guard is like, we're talking about warrior. And, it's funny how many of these warriors, I told you before the show, it don't have to be the best guy at the position. It's who do we think is the ultimate warrior at that position. Mm-hmm. But so many of the all-time Steelers greats, you can call a warrior for sure.
Yeah.
And so then you start talking about guys that maybe wasn't the superstar Hall of Fame guys, but guys who represented the Steeler way. Because it's easy to say Alan Vanaken. He threw that huge block in the Super Bowl to spill Willie Parker. Mm-hmm. And Faneca was on just another level. And I would have to say he's probably the greatest guard in Steeler history. But somebody mentioned in the comments, and it was scrolling up, and I've lost it now. But they mentioned Ramon Foster,
Mm.
and I'm going to say Ramon Foster, and here's why. This is the guy that coming out undrafted, afterthought, and that's a guy that went on to have a 10-year reign as a starter in the NFL for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he did it on just effort and intelligence and fundamentals. The big gray goo, baby. I mean, he represented all that that a Warrior should be. So I'm going to go Ramon Foster.
Yeah, I was thinking about going Foster myself because of him being an undrafted guy, because of the fact that the Steelers drafted his replacement too. They had a high draft pick at guard. I think the year after, or the 2 years after Ramon, uh, was on the team, and he kept that guard off. I can't remember his name, Sutherland or something like that.
I know you're talking about. I don't remember his name either.
Yeah, they drafted a guard high,
Yeah,
first or
yeah.
second round, and that guy never played it down for the Steelers because Ramon Foster didn't let him. For me, I'm going to go with Faneca just because, man, that guy was a beast. He played tackle at 1 year because of injury and things like that. So, yeah, I got to go with Alan Faneca. He was a mean son of a gun, which is what you want in a warrior. When Tommy Maddox went down, they asked him straight up, "What do you think about having a rookie there?" He told you what he thought.
Yeah.
He was not pleased with the fact that Ben Roethlisberger was going to be the starting quarterback, not because he didn't have faith in him, but because he didn't want to go into battle with a rookie quarterback. And Ben changed his mind fairly quick, but he spoke his mind. He was a leader on the team, and like you mentioned, arguably the best guard in the history of the NFL. Transitioning now to the tackle, this one might be a little bit tougher. Who do you think who's your tackle warrior?
This is a hard one. It really is. When you think about all the positions and all the legends, the Steelers have gotten by through the years with a wide variety of tackles from every, undrafted guys, developmental guys. They've had tons of first round picks not work out, so it's very hard to say who was the best warrior, not player. But thinking about his background as an Army Ranger, Alejandro Villanueva perfectly exemplifies, to me, everything he did as a Pittsburgh Steeler represented what it meant to be a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Mm-hmm.
And he overcame so much, because remember, he was a tight end in college, and he transitioned, and a guy with that height to get leverage is very hard a lot of times, but he could do it all. And he had a very good career, but as far as the warrior mentality, I'm going to have to go with Valnahanda.
Yeah, Big L's definitely the guy. He amplifies what a warrior is. He was one, Army Ranger.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, given Alejandro's off the table, warrior. I mean, there's not a lot of great tackles that I can come up the top of my head that I can remember that had a long career with the Pittsburgh Steelers and solidified that position while they were a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm going to throw another one out to help you out. And I love the man. I miss him. You know who I'm going to say? Tunch Ilnick.
Yeah.
Tunch.
Yeah. Tunch, definitely.
I mean, Tunch, another guy that, just an overachiever, a guy who battled, who become actually a Pro Bowler at one point. I loved the dude. I thought he was just awesome. Then he was a legend in the press box. And, and I think that we all miss him. Same with Craig Wolfley now.
Yeah.
I mean, there was another guy that played for years for the Steelers, and we miss him as well. But, Tunch is a guy, and, it's all these overachievers.
Yeah.
When you get to this part of the line, I don't know what it is. Larry Brown, coming to Pittsburgh as a tight end, becomes your tackle, goes on to win Super Bowls as a tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So there's some options there, but it's hard to choose just two.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Tunch definitely is the guy. I was leaning towards Beecham, just kind of because he was
Undersized.
undersized.
Yep. Yep.
Didn't expect him to be there, but yeah, no, Tunch is probably a better option in my opinion. All right, transitioning to the tight end. There's a handful there as well. Where would you go with the tight end position?
Well, I just, again, another guy that just amplifies the Steeler way in every way is Heath Miller, in my opinion. I was never, because the Steelers never leaned on the tight end that much. I mean, they had Randy Grossman, they had BJ Cunningham back in the day, but it was, these guys were more just blockers, count occasional pass,
Yeah.
It wasn't until like Eric Green came along, I was like, oh, you can really throw to the tight end that much, because he was just like a man mountain, and he was so talented. But no, I just thought that when you're talking about tight ends, Heath Miller was the ultimate in the fact that he was such a team player that you couldn't tell after a game if he had 10 catches or he had no catches, as long as the Steelers won.
Yeah.
And he didn't take a playoff ever. And he was that security blanket for being and a sounding board and just a reliable friend. So, yeah, to me, Heath Miller is the one.
Yeah, he's a great choice, man. For me, I'm going to go with Mark Bruner. He did a lot for the team. He's still doing a lot for the team. He's scouting for the Steelers. He did a lot of blocking, back when that was what mainly the tight ends were meant for. I remember Eric Green mainly because he was the target on the pass against the Chargers in the championship, and that didn't go down well. Yeah, no, I'm gonna stick with Mark Bruner. I would have gone Heath, but Mark Bruner is going to be my second choice. Going on to the outside, going to wide receiver. Where are you going here? There's a lot of good wide receivers out
there. This is going to surprise people, knowing me, and that I believe that John Stallworth was the toughest of the two receivers on the dynasty, on the Steel Curtain. But I believe that Lynch Swann was literally fearless because the guy flew through the air like no player I ever seen to catch balls. Back in the day, they could take your legs out and spike you like a lawn dart. And have you ever seen any of the old highlights of the Oakland Raiders assaulting him? I mean, literally assaulting him from behind when the play's over. It's just some crazy stuff. And he still went out there and played. You look at all that, and I wanted to say Lynch Swann because he's my all-time favorite Steeler receiver. And then it hit me. It can't be. There's only one guy that can be the warrior, and that's Hines Ward. Because Hines Ward would wait for an interception. And then he would look for Ed Reed or Ray Lewis or whoever. And they were scared of him. They hated him because they were scared of him. Because he would take their head off. And they changed the rules because of Hines Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that don't happen very often, guys. It happened with Bill Blunt. It didn't happen with Hines Ward. And I'd seen him get blowed up before. And just wiped out. I mean, just take a shot right with the helmet right in the gut. And he'd get up smiling at the guy. And you're like, oh, my God, I can't believe you. He'd get over on the sidelines, get behind his teammates and collapse. But he wouldn't let the defense know, right, that he had been hurt or they knocked the wind out of him. So when you talk about toughness, intimidation, and willingness to do anything it took to win the game, you got to say Hines Ward.
Yeah, you really can't. I mean, say anybody else other than Hines Ward, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are saying AB, and I think AB was probably hands down the best wide receiver on the field, with what his talent was. But I don't know if he was, well, I mean, he stuck it out there. I mean, he took a lot of hits to the head, one from Perfect that I think a lot of people remember. He put it out there. I'm going to go with AB, now that I'm talking myself into it. He was, what he did on the field was amazing. He held onto the ball. He took some massive hits. He fought through a lot. I mean, remember that one, the immaculate extension? He was
Yes.
literally getting his face mask ripped by Weddle
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
Ravens, and he's has the fortitude to reach the ball over the goal line to get that for the division, I believe, as well. And so, I mean, I'm gonna go with AB as a Warrior. I mean, shoot, he just got robbed not too recently and fought him off too. So he's
Yeah.
got some dogs still in him, and so
Oh, he had to, he wasn't the biggest guy.
that's
So he
true.
had to have toughness to be as great as he was, definitely.
All righty. So transitioning now into the backfield, we got the running back position. I think I know where you're going, but I'll let you go.
Well, when I think of that running back, toughness warrior, I think Rocky Blyer. I mean, the guy lost part of his foot, and he still come back and played in the NFL because the Rooneys are, Mr. Rooney was a man of his word, a man of honor, and he gave him the chance, and Rocky made the most of it. But Rocky Blyer has to be the choice because I just don't know too many athletes that go through something like that would ever made it back on the NFL football field. You're talking about the highest level, and to be, to go through that and partial amputation. I mean, that's just incredible. And not being a big guy either. I mean, if you've ever been around him, he's not a big guy. And he is another guy that we say a warrior to the core. That's Rocky Blyer. Can you hear me? Well, I don't know if I'm still on or if Daniel's gone or what's happened. But yeah, hopefully everybody, I mean, because there's been some great ones. But when you talk about warrior, it's a kind of a different animal there. The Steelers, you've had the bus, Jerome Bettis, and he was incredible. Okay, sounds like everybody sees me. So I'm trying to see. Oh, I know what happened. Daniel just told me his power went out. So that could be a problem because he's my producer, so to speak. So he's the one that closes out the shows. And if we can carry on with the show, but I can't close the show. So, look here comes Bad to the rescue.
I got a call on the bullpen phone.
Yeah, I was like, guys, I can do everything, but I can't close it.
I've got a call from the bullpen phone. A bad storm that I guess is going on right now in Daniel J's neck of the woods. So
because he just was gone. He was just gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had a bad storm. He called me up and said, "Hey, could you go ahead and help me close the show?" They lost power. He got his power back, so he's trying to get back in. But even though I wasn't listening to the show, great show, and I think you're absolutely correct. Warriors are wanted for OTA'S, and I think one thing about OTAs, Shannon, is I kind of feel that no news is good news from OTAs, and that means no holdouts, no problems as far as injuries. That's the biggest thing.
Hey, man, what we were talking about at this point is we were going down the list of the all-time Warriors at each position, in our opinion, for the Steelers. Now, we weren't talking about who was the best players, but who was the ultimate Warriors. And we had gotten to running back. And I said that my pick was Rocky Blyer. Because it's Memorial Day. We're talking about Warriors. And I think, you lose part of your foot and you make it back and play in the NFL for them many years, win Super Bowls, you deserve some credit.
I cannot argue with that whatsoever.
We've seen a lot of Bettis and different people, Bell. But, when we're talking straight Warriors, we were picking, each one of us was picking one. So who would be your Warrior at running back?
I'm actually going to go with Frank Pollard.
Oh, Frank Pollard, yes.
And the reason I'm going to go with Frank Pollard, Shannon, did you know that his high school team won the overall track championship in 1980? Or 1976. He was drafted in 1980. In 1976, his track team won a championship. And I believe he was featured in Sports Illustrated's Faces in the Crowd. He was the only athlete on that track team. And he won a Texas State championship as a team by himself.
By himself? I did not know that. Now, I knew he'd been in Faces in the Crowd.
Yes.
See, you have to be our age to remember that in Sports Illustrated.
You know who else was on Faces in the Crowd? My man, Tom Selleck.
Okay. Yep.
Tom Magnum PI was in Faces in the Crowd. How about that? And I believe a guy that was, for all of you, I'm not ashamed to say that I was a Days of Our Lives fan way back then. And a guy named Drake Hogestine, who played John Black / Roman Brady, he just died last year. And he was on Faces of the Crowd too. Not many Steelers. I think Frank Pollard might be the only Steeler that was in Faces of the Crowd though. But I bring him up because he was he was a fighter, a warrior. Yeah, I'll give you another guy. Ernest Jackson fought for yards too.
Ernest Jackson, yep.
He wasn't there for a long time. I might go ahead and mistake Warriors for blue collar guys.
They're similar.
But I like those pounders. I'll give you one from recent years. I kind of thought Chris Fuamatu Malafalo.
Oh, yes.
So
I loved it because so many people in Pittsburgh, legends, couldn't say his name.
We're getting a question from it's either Jamie or Jaime Carlo. He's going to ask what Faces in the Crowd is. I'm going to have you do it. Explain what Faces in the Crowd is. I might have an example.
Yeah, back in the day, they would highlight people at the beginning of your Sports Illustrated each week or whenever you got them each month. And it would be Faces in the Crowd of somebody who accomplished a state record in a certain state, and it could be anything. It could have been soccer, it didn't have to be one of the major sports. And so like Bad was saying, you'd have usually 6 people listed each week. And Frank Pollard did make it in there. I couldn't remember what it was for. And it's funny to think of Frank Pollard as a track athlete because he really wasn't that fast. But I guess, fast to normal people compared to NFL people.
I'm trying, guys. I have it. So I have a one from 1994. That's Brenson Buckner. Yeah. In that 1994 season, I just keep Steelers Sports Illustrated, and I know they're right behind me. And I was hoping to have an example. I got them. So they look like this.
Yes.
And you're right. They're 5 or 6 people, and they have a little bit of a write-up. And if you look at the people here, one's a scuba diving teacher that broke the men's and women's record for swimming. One is a senior at Arkansas that led the cross-country team. One's a freshman from the Georgia women's volleyball team. And another are 2 brothers, I guess they're twins, that were coaches in high school tennis. So, it was basically to highlight those just regular people with great athletic feats. So it was actually a really interesting thing.
I think it put a spotlight on a national scale on people that would have otherwise been overlooked. See, now everything's on Twitter, everything's on social media.
Yeah.
But back in the day, somebody did something great, it was local, nobody heard about it.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Well, now the next thing is we're going to finish it up with our Warriors as quarterback. bad. And I do not know who that Daniel was going to say. And I really wanted him. We saved the best for last. Now, everybody who knows me, like I said, it doesn't have to be the greatest player in Steeler history. It's the toughest. The guy who brings that intensity and was willing to leave it all out there on the field, play through injury, everything. But I still think if you talk about that quality, you still come down to Ben and Terry.
Yeah.
It's Ben and Bradshaw. It has to be.
It's Ben, Bradshaw, and to a lesser extent, it's Bubby. But Bubby in no way would go ahead and surpass those guys. They both I have a hard time picking between Ben and Terry anytime. It's really tough for me. But you and I, we were blessed to have been able to witness both eras. Yes. More of Ben. We witnessed more of Ben.
Oh, definitely.
But we definitely watched Super Bowls with Terry Bradshaw playing, and he was one of my guys.
And I got to watch good Terry. You know, Terry at 78, 79 was MVP level.
Oh, he was amazing.
You know, he was whipping it around the field to Swan and Stallworth. And I mean, the Steelers had a juggernaut offense. The Terry that I don't remember in the early 70s, it was all defense and the offense stunk. So I couldn't, you know, if I had to pick the warrior from the two guys, again, I'm prejudiced. Bradshaw, I love Bradshaw, but Ben is my favorite Steeler ever. And I never thought I could say that at any point. And I got to late in his career that it dawned on me that, yes, he's my favorite player.
Yeah.
And so I seen he play with his nose over here.
Yeah.
And I had my nose smashed over the side of my face. And if anybody's ever went through that and you keep playing, you're one tough SOB.
And I will say, but for Terry Bradshaw, I agree with you completely on Ben. For Terry Bradshaw, when he threw that final touchdown pass in Super Bowl 10 he threw a touchdown pass.
Swan.
I believe it was to Lynn Swan.
Yeah, and he got knocked out.
He got knocked out. And he woke up after the game. He was completely knocked up. And his only words were, "Did we win?"
Yeah, yeah. But the same thing, like to me, I've seen Bradshaw do things. I don't want to say he couldn't spell cat. I'm not going to insult him like Henderson did. But him and Bubby both played a game that was kind of less cerebral. So for Ben to go through what he did many times to get injured and come back and everything, it was a more taxing offense. Bradshaw was like, I'm going to throw deep to Swan. I'm going to throw deep to Stallworth. I'm going to throw something out here to Franco. You know, it was a more simplified offense. And surrounded by Hall of Famers everywhere. How many Hall of Famers has Ben been surrounded by? Especially on offense. So when I think about Warrior, I thought that the Steelers had a chance at every game Ben Roethlisberger put on a jersey. I did not feel that way. If he was not in the game, I did not have a lot of faith they were going to win. So I just, that toughness factor and being a Steeler his whole career, just like Bradshaw, they both bleed black and gold, but I've given the edge to Ben.
I will go ahead and since it's not my show and Daniel's back, I'm going to be a wimp here and just say tie.
Oh, you're checking it out.
Hey, I'm a guest star. And
Thank
not
you,
really
I
a
appreciate
star.
you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for filling in for me. We have a massive storm coming in, and I heard it hitting, and I was like, please don't go out, and boom. But it's back on now. Thank you.
Hey, Daniel, when the Bills do, you got to pay it.
He just paused real quick.
I think I lost him again.
So I might have to stick around. I will say this though. I was in the middle of recording Bad Language tomorrow on the audio side, and I did pause it, which is not a problem. But with that being said, make sure that you check out Bad Language here on the Steel Curtain Network.
Yes. Shameless plug. We love it.
And I think we're losing. Daniel's paused again.
He said it happened again. He just told me. It happened again.
So I tell you what, we'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and make a pick. I'm going to go ahead and say Ben as well. And it's not because of age bias. It's just basically because of I really thought he was. I thought he was tough.
Yes.
Now, was he a pain in the butt those early years? Yes, he was. He was a pain, but he grew up. He had to grow up. He did stupid things. But Terry Bradshaw was terrible his first 3 or 4 years. In this day and age, Terry Bradshaw would have been a Ryan Leaf.
No, he'd have never got a chance.
He would have never got another chance. He would have been labeled, but it was a different time. But when he got going, he was absolutely special. I mean, really, when you look
for Daniel, where he don't have power, and I know that he would have picked somebody different than me because we've been kind of doing that, and so I'm sure he would have picked Bradshaw, but he might have picked somebody else because he's also trying to pick guys from his generation, and he's younger than me and you.
Let me be very unpopular here. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out, and I'm going to get boos. And I understand why I'm getting boos for this. Neil O'Donnell was a tough quarterback.
Oh, I can't believe you said that.
Neil O'Donnell was tough.
Gosh.
We just have a problem with the way it ended. But that guy, I mean, he took a beating. He really did. But when you're talking about taking a beating, you got to remember how many times Ben was sacked.
That's another thing. Exactly. Yeah.
And I mentioned Neil O'Donnell, and Mr. Woodside says, bye, bad. All right. You guys are done with me. I get it. So I'm going to.
We don't mention his name on this show anymore.
Here's my question. Let me ask you this question about Neil O'Donnell. You take that final game in a Steelers uniform away. Did you like him?
No.
Really?
Honest to God, when Greg Lloyd, I was so done with him in Chicago, and Greg Lloyd went over and got in his face and basically told him, get your head out of your rear or I'm going to knock you out after the game. And it took that to get him to come out there and play in the second half. I'm sorry, he was not my kind of quarterback. And I'll leave it at that. That's before how it ended.
All right, that's fine, and I understand. I get labeled as a Neil O'Donnell lover, and I am not, but I did recognize that there are a lot of times where I thought he was a solid quarterback for this team.
He was the game manager that protected the football, and when he didn't protect the football, it was awful, and we've seen that in the Super Bowl. Yeah.
It went bad, but I saw him engineer comebacks. I thought he played a tough brand of football, though, because he got beat around, too. He really did. But the answer, I think Ben's the correct answer here. I thought Bubby was a tough quarterback. He was tougher and mouthier than he was good.
That play where he was running behind the ref, trying to hide behind the ref. And I'll never forget that. That, it was like something off a Saturday Night Lights skit,
That's hilarious. Well, I think it's since I've made everybody mad, we've got to screw that guy. We've got not towards me, but towards Neil
O'Donnell. Not towards you, man. No.
I still don't think he got paid, but we're never gonna know. I just thought he blew it. I really thought that he blew it.
I even went back that year and to see had he thrown that type of interception at any point that year, and he hadn't. Now I see Tommy Maddox have a habit of making a read and throwing it without seeing if it was open and throwing pick sixes. You remember how Maddox would do?
Yeah.
But I'd never seen Neil O'Donnell do that, and he did it twice in the same game.
Well,
so I mean, one time they said it could have been the wrong route. I don't know, but it just looked really fishy.
If Ernie Mills does not get hurt in that game, I don't think he throws that interception. Corey Holiday had no business being out there. and he did run the wrong route. It's been documented. But he should have recognized it. He screwed up. He's the GOAT and not the greatest of all time GOAT, the bad GOAT. He's the bad GOAT.
Yeah.
For that game. And I feel cheated by him, but I recognize the kid out of Maryland that came in as a third round pick in 1990 and then in 91 basically won the job, and I thought he was pretty good. But here we go. Nobody ever agrees with me on that. I can't. Speaking of getting paid, I can't pay anybody to agree with me on Neil O'Donnell.
Well, but the thing is, you're consistent and you stand by your convictions. And I stand by mine. Everybody knows I can't stand the hardballs. Everybody knows there's certain, and I can't stand Mendenhall. And yes, I can't stand Neil O'Donnell either.
So Big Pun asked, what pissed you off more, Neil's interception or the Mendenhall fumble?
Both. But at least the Mendenhall fumble was forced by Clay Matthews.
Mendenhall
play. I could at least handle that a little bit.
Yeah, he did get cracked. He was just a jerk. Mendy was a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't help that he basically quit the team and then quit football. I mean, he was a good consultant for an HBO football show, Ballers with Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
He was a writer and a consultant for there. He was good on that. But he was a guy that thought he was smart. He had very good test scores in high school and college. He was a very smart guy, but he was a guy that was arrogant enough to think that he was smarter than everybody else. And when he made comments after the assassination of Osama bin Laden, he lost a lot of respect from a lot of people, and especially my dad, who saw it on, and I quote, the tweeter. So when he saw it on the tweeter, he was like, he was done. But Mendenhall did get crushed in that game. I just watched that recently. I'm watching old Steeler games. I'm in 1984 right now. But so I'm watching Mark Malone and David Woodley. So anyways, it's time I'm going to get yelled at for this running long, but
you saved the day. I appreciate it because I can't stop it.
All right. For Shannon White, my name is Brian Anthony Davis. I don't know how you close the show. Do you still do the woo?
I still do the woo.
Give me a good Ric Flair woo.
All righty.
All right. I don't have your music. So, Shannon, can I have one more woo where is your music? Okay.
Another one?
What's that?
You say you need another one?
I just can't find your music. So I guess I will have to find that in what we call post-production, as Jeff always makes fun of me for this. So does Dave, as I break down the fourth wall. So I cannot find your music unless you guys have a special thing. But all right. For Brian Anthony Davis, of course, for the great Daniel J. and Shannon White, we'll see you next week. I need another woo.